This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. John Catsimatidis is a St. Petersburg condo developer, New York City businessman, and author of a memoir, How Far Do You Want to Go? Lessons from a Common Sense Billionaire. John is also a big personality, something the Business Observer excels at writing about. To read more about leaders like John, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is John Catsimatidis, owner and CEO of Red Apple Group. Company is well known in New York City for grocery chain and many other businesses, and here in St. Petersburg, it is known for the residences at 400 Central in downtown St. Pete. John, welcome and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for asking me to join you, and St. Pete is one of my favorite towns.
Yes, we're going to get into that. I love the story about how you discovered St. Pete. We're going to talk about that in a second. Before we get in that, we'll just get our audience to know you a little bit better. We're going to do three quick rapid fire questions. You've met so many interesting people in your life. I'm curious, who's the one person you'd like to have dinner with, dead or alive? One person you'd like to have dinner with.
Well, I had dinner with him 2 weeks ago. His name is President Bill Clinton.
Excellent. Wow. So you've had it. You've done it. Awesome. Very cool. What is your morning routine?
I get up, I go to the bathroom like everybody else, and then I come back, pick up my iPhone and see any texts that are very important.
So you go through the text. Got it. This one's a little bit more of a deeper thought. Last one. What's one thing you would suggest? Because you wrote about this a little bit in your book about living a good life. What's one thing you could suggest people could do to have a better life, to be happier in their life?
Stay away from airports and flying commercial.
Excellent. Easy. Good tips. All right, John, you've had, again, a really interesting life. Tell us about growing up. What was your childhood like?
Oh, I grew up on 135th Street in Harlem, and there was a few city blocks away from City College of New York, and Lewiston Stadium was up the block, and the A&P was down the block, and it was a mixed neighborhood. There was blacks, there was Irish, there was Spanish, there were Greeks, there were Italians. It's everything. It was a mixed, and this is growing up in 1950s up there, and it was a great neighborhood. We would walk up to Amsterdam Avenue, down Amsterdam Avenue, across 125th Street with zero fear.
Yeah.
Harlem was just Harlem was a great town. Was a great area. Nobody was scared to walk through Harlem. And go to the Bloomstein's department store on 125th Street. And a few times we'd go to the Triborough Bridge, walk across the Triborough Bridge and go to Queens. And we walked a lot in those days.
Yeah. Excellent. At some point you got into the grocery business. Tell us about getting into the grocery industry and how you were able to do that and grow that company.
I just finished Brooklyn Tech High School. I was all set to jump on the couch and watch television for the whole summer until I would go to NYU in the fall.
Yeah.
And my mother came, threw me off the couch, and he says, I got you a job down the block in the grocery store. So I went from planning to sleep on the couch for the whole summer to working 70, 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
At $1.10 an hour. At the grocery store. And so that was an interesting summer.
Yeah, but you kept going though. I mean, you worked obviously a lot of hours, but you kept going. And tell us about growing and how you got into ownership of some grocery stores and chains.
Well, I was working for Tony. He became like my big brother. I had no
Yeah.
brothers. I had no sisters. And, if I had a hot date on a Saturday night, I would borrow his Bonneville, which was as big as a bus. I mean,
Yeah.
those old Bonnevilles
Love it.
were really, really big. And he was like a big brother. I would never say no to Tony. And then in my junior year at NYU, he came to me. He was arguing with his uncle. They would argue about everything. They had a second store. They would argue, you bought too many peaches, you bought too many bananas, you didn't buy enough bananas, you didn't. So he says, I don't want to have family problems. I want you to take over my half of the store. I said, Tony, I'm going to school. I mean, I'm going to take over half the store. Well, he convinced me. He had me sign a note for $1,000 a month for 10 months, and I took over the store. And I would go to school. In those days, college and university was 5 days a week. It wasn't what the kids are getting away with now, 3.5 days.
Yeah.
So I'd go to university for 5 days a week. I'd work 7 days a week, and sleep. There was very little time for sleep. But
Overrated.
Me and his uncle, we never had one argument. Previously, him and his nephew argued every day, and that was the reason Tony made me buy his half of the store.
Yeah.
So it was a great relationship. We went on, and that was actually my first store.
Yeah, and what I'm so impressed by was, grocery business can be a low margin business to begin with, and you're in New York, and there's rent is super high, and regulations are high, and insurance is high. How are you able to sustain a business for so long in that environment?
That was 54 years ago, and it was great years those years.
Yeah.
It's not great years anymore. If you notice what happened now with the laws changing in New York and the laws changing all over the place, half the drugstores in New York have closed already.
Yeah.
And half the supermarkets have closed already. And there is no profit margin left because the amount of money with the shoplifters and extra security, there is no profit margin left in supermarkets. So I would say of all our companies, that is the lowest profit margin. As a matter of fact, it's not a profit margin. It's very below zero of any stores. That's why the drugstores have been closing, not only in our big cities, they've been closing nationwide.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to switch a little bit to Florida. So tell us about discovering St. Petersburg and what you especially liked about St. Pete.
Well, I met my future wife in 1972, 73, and her parents lived in Indianapolis. And 8 years later, her parents that lived in Indianapolis, along with her brother and her sister, moved to where? St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah.
So instead of visiting them in Indianapolis, we've been going down to St. Petersburg since 1980, 44 years ago. So I feel I'm almost a resident of St. Pete already.
Tell us about the project in St. Pete. What does that entail? Residences at 400 Central, and how'd you get involved in that?
Margot's, my wife's father, said, you have to invest in St. Pete. You have to invest in St. Pete. So this opportunity, and I would groan. I would say, yeah, yes. But one opportunity came along in downtown St. Pete that they said that this family owns it. There's 7 brothers, sisters, I don't know, I don't remember, and nobody can make a deal with them. That reminded me of another deal that I did in the Bronx, in New York. And another 2 deals, many deals, where the families were arguing with themselves, and I had to make a deal with every one of the members of the family to make the whole deal.
Yeah.
And so I looked at it as a challenge, and I always like challenges.
Yeah.
And I sat down with the family members, and one by one, we got them to sell, and it turned out to be a great deal.
Yeah, what's the status of the project right now? I know there's been a lot of progress and goings on there. What's the status right
It's,
now?
it's, it's the tallest building in the west coast of Florida. And we should start taking occupancy September, October, something like that.
Of this year, of
This year,
2025.
yes.
Wow. All right, exciting. Going back to your business career, because again, you've done so many things. What are some common mistakes that you see startup companies make?
Startup companies make that, depending on where you grow up. And I have an expression. The expression is, we're all lions in our own den. If you're trying to be a lion in another den, you might get, what do you call it? Eaten up.
Yeah.
So I learned my lessons in New York, and so when I started doing business in St. Pete, we were a little bit extra careful to make sure that we're going the right direction, doing the right things.
Yeah. Yeah. So stay in your lane, so to speak. What about leadership? What are some characteristics that you look for in leaders in your company? What makes a good leader to you?
Well, I love to hire people that are smarter than me. And I think that's very, very important.
Yeah.
Is that you need good people, because if you're going to do businesses, whether it's multiple companies or types of companies or multiple cities, you better have the best you can get in every city or every state.
What about on a mentorship side? It sounds like Tony played a really big role in your life. Who have been some at the grocery store when you were growing up? Who have been some mentors, and what are some lessons you've learned from some of your mentors?
I was talking about it at lunch today. A few of them would be Frank Perdue, the original founder of Perdue Chickens, and I learned a lot from him. He was a adventurer. He was a leader in the chicken industry, and he tried to come to New York. And New York was run by certain families, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, and they controlled the chicken business.
Yeah.
And I'm the only one that had the courage to bring in Frank Perdue, because I thought his chickens were superior,
Yeah.
and he did a great job, and that our customers would like him. And
Yeah.
I helped make Frank Perdue a winner. On the same platform, you've heard of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Well,
Sure.
Rose Mattis and her husband invented Haagen-Dazs ice cream in their home in the South Bronx, in the basement.
Wow.
They were creators. They believed in using the best ingredients and the best of everything, and they created a name that sounded very European, very chic. And we were the first ones to bring that in. So I was a leader in the supermarket industry, bringing in all kinds of products that nobody else had the courage to bring in. Because in those days, the ice cream companies would give you the refrigeration necessary in the stores, but they only wanted you to keep their ice cream in
Their own ice cream.
in
Yeah.
the refrigerator. And we broke ground, and we helped Haagen-Dazs become a market leader. And Rose Mattis, her brother, was the truck driver that delivered the Haagen-Dazs to every one of our stores. So it shows you it's a worldwide product
Yeah.
started in one of my stores.
Yeah. That's awesome. Love that. John, how have you bounced back from things that didn't go your way? You know, you're involved in so many deals, so many businesses, but sometimes things don't go your way. You don't get the deal you wanted, or an employee you wanted, things like that. How do you recover when things are how do you recover from setbacks?
Well, you look up high and you keep your nose high, and you go forward. You don't have too many regrets and cry. You just got to go forward.
Yeah.
And we can't look back. And we are going to make mistakes. We do make mistakes. We're not perfect. And I think that's important, that you don't take anything to heart, and that you're able to just jump up and say, okay, let's go forward, guys.
Excellent. John, what else can we expect from you? You mentioned toward the end of the year, it's going to open in St. Pete. You have other projects in Florida. What else is going on for you in Florida?
4 blocks up from our current project, which is an iconic project. It's such a beautiful, one of the most beautiful buildings in Florida. And we bought a land that 4 blocks up from the current piece that we're going to be building another building.
Excellent. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. Anytime you need me, just call us, text us. And the unfortunate thing about it at my age, we still work 24/7.
Always grinding.
Although, those guys, Jamie Dimon says, come back to work 5 days a week. I've been working 7 days a week. So what do I do?
Yeah. Where do you go?
Yep. And the people that want to work only 3 days a week, 4 days a week, they could write a book someday. I failed in life, and this is the reasons why.
Love it. Thanks for your time, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.